welcome to We Just Watched. Could be a movie, it could be a trailer, it could be a TV show, but this is about the thing that we just watched. So this week we just watched The Matrix Resurrection. Spoiler warning, we're going to talk spoilers. If you haven't seen it yet, hit pause, go watch it, come back, we'll wait while you watch. I'm CJ.
I'm Ed.
I'm Will.
And I'm Chris. This is what we watched. Let's talk about The Matrix Resurrections, you guys. So,
what would you like to talk about, Chris?
Oh, we got all sorts of things we can talk about.
Great. It's a great film. We're fans. We can flim-flam about stuff. It's just let's get into it.
We can get into this. We can get into all the flim-flam about this movie. There's a lot of flim-flam in here.
We're just talking about what we just watched, though.
But we are talking about what we just watched.
Yes, it was a film.
Yeah. So, what did you guys think of The Matrix Resurrection? The fourth movie in the Matrix trilogy. We'd watched all three of the previous ones not more than a month ago.
Not more than a month ago.
I think all throughout November, that was our thing.
I'm curious to hear Will's response because you and I sort of streamed that together.
Yes.
I have a general idea of how you feel about this movie. I think you have a general idea of how I feel about this movie.
I think
so. Will.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So I was hearing bad things.
Uh-huh.
But no reviews. I didn't read any reviews. And I watched it, and I didn't hate it. I actually kind of liked it. Look for some issues, like the One Trinity.
Uh-huh.
You go in expecting, like, how are they going to explain his burned eyeballs? They explained it. They had like a resurrection chamber. Yeah, they
rebuilt him.
The Neil Patrick Harris. They kind of like took the bodies and they mended them up in that goo. They use that goo that they keep them in. They put them in there. And they mended their bodies and like reset their brains. I think they explained it.
Ed has a question. I think he raised his hand.
Go ahead.
Hard to tell.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
If the baby goo can fix people, then theoretically can't they keep the human batteries alive long enough, or indefinitely, to just keep powering machines?
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that.
Fixes people, but it definitely helps because remember when he was 60 years older, but he was only like 20 years old.
It's another question I had.
Not so much forever, but obviously they're keeping them alive longer.
Extended though, right?
But did they ever?
Extended.
I don't know that they ever mentioned in the original Matrix that people died in those pods.
Well, they put the toilet system in there to flush them out of the pods when they were no longer.
They were done. Yeah, but they didn't. Yeah. They never gave a lifespan.
Yeah, but I don't know if that. Yeah, they didn't give them a lifespan. But they also, I thought maybe that flushing system was just there in case they awoke, which then offers a whole bunch of other questions about why they'd even have that system. If they awoke, then why would they even flush them? And then why don't they just go into a blender and be like, nah.
Simplest explanation, Christopher.
They can't swim. They're just going to drown in the goo.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
So you have to get the claw game to come get them out.
The goo is resurrection-y. And it extends people's lives.
No, the goo is like longevity and healing, but I don't think it's resurrection. I think that was the technology that they were using.
Okay.
To heal them. It's the future. They're machines. Let's at least accept the fact that they can fix a broken body.
We'll accept that.
Body?
Sure.
Okay.
Two dead bodies.
Two dead bodies that are brought back to life by their love for each other. Come on, guys, keep up.
I mean, one was like dead for a while in Trinity.
Yeah, she probably smelled bad.
Yeah. There was definitely like a bacterial bloat in there.
There's no bacteria. Those machines were up there and the bacteria is down in Zion where it's warm.
Neo, I could see because they probed him really fast and they got him out of there. Trinity, she was plenty ripe by that point.
And he was still glowing when they pulled his body away, so
Right. So, other than the eyes, I could see him totally being resurrected.
It's a movie. we don't have to believe everything, but I think the explanation was acceptable. Okay.
And that's only the explanation of why his eyes were fixed, not the explanation for anything else in the film.
The resurrection, that's keeping him, what am I trying to get to? Yeah, his subconscious trying to escape his little new mind.
Why do you think they gave him that option then?
Gave who?
Why did they give Neo the option of like recreating his own version of them, like giving him that knowledge? I think that's not to go, backtracking too much, but one of the things I mentioned, that philosophical idea of the body or the brain in a jar scenario, like why would you implant or allow that brain to have those ideas in the first place, since it's so dangerous to the Matrix or the mad scientist that's trying to contain this brain? Why would you allow them to even have knowledge of the Matrix and play with all these thoughts?
Maybe suppressing them made him wake up or made it caused an issue.
Yeah, I think they alluded to the idea that like he needed to know about the Matrix, or like the Matrix needed to exist in his consciousness for the power that they were siphoning out of him. Maybe like
I could be wrong because I haven't rewatched it. I thought it was the proximity to Trinity.
It's the proximity to Trinity, but I think that it still he also being the one probably had some need for the Matrix to be real, or for him to sort of have it in that like back of the mind, like that was kind of the whole thing for why they kept giving him the drugs, was that they needed him to kind of know that the Matrix was a thing, but like they never wanted him to go fully self-aware of the Matrix, right? They just kind of wanted to keep him in like a coma. That,
and he needed Trinity 2 to kind of get that power going, but they could be too close. If they were too close, they would wake up. If he said it, FDA said you need them close, but not too close.
And they needed this to happen because they were running out of energy?
Yeah. That
I like the war between the machines because they were running out of resources.
Ed's got a lot to say about this.
Oh, Ed doesn't like it because machines can't be like that.
Why was there a war between the machines that the Matrix created?
Resources. They're sentient. They're
hive minds. Why are they fighting each other?
They became their own tribes. They became their own nation.
Yeah, I don't think that they're a hive mind.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they be if they're all connected to the Matrix?
See, that's the thing. I think that there's...
They might not be connected to the Matrix.
I think that there is a separation there. Because here's the thing. I think that there is a separation there between... in the world, that they created machines that were sentient and self-thinking. The machines
they mentioned that?
Yeah, this is all I believe in the original Matrix. They created machines. They created, because like Morpheus is like, welcome to the desert of the real world or whatever. And then he kind of goes into the explanation. They created AI. AI started controlling machines. Machines rebelled against humans. Humans fought the machines. So it's robots versus humans. It's Terminator, right?
Got it.
Robots and humans are separate things. Robots win. Okay. Robots need humans for power. Robots create the Matrix. The robots in the Matrix are connected, but they're not the same thing. Robots in that Matrix are not.
Why would you think the Matrix is different from the AI itself? Isn't the Matrix just the network that contains the AI?
No, I think the Matrix is just where they put people so that the people batteries keep making energy.
Everything else is programs in there.
Everything, yeah. There's
designers,
programs.
Everything else is a program.
Robots, yeah.
So, what was the purpose of the architect in the original trilogy then, if it's not all interconnected hive mind?
He was controlling the Matrix. He was the robot that controlled the Matrix, but there was like there was like other robots that did other things. Like that's why like the Sentinels aren't in the Matrix. The Sentinels are robots outside of the Matrix. They have their own. They have like a hive mind AI
they're not even fully hive mind in the Matrix, because you've got the Oracle program, the Merovingian, a different program.
Those are programs, not necessarily AI.
But they're not. Yeah, but they're not all hive mind.
But then they're not at all hive minds, and they're not. Yeah, like they have their own self intelligence agendas.
Who was controlling all the baby squids at the end of whatever the third
at the end of Revolution.
Yeah.
The one with the Gerber baby squid face.
Oh, the Gerber baby thing. That's probably like
the head honcho. Yeah,
all this. My point is, if there's a head honcho, why are all their like separate? Like, you'd figure they all have the same purpose.
They don't all have the same purpose.
He's in charge of the Matrix. He was the one in charge of the Matrix, the security, the program.
What is the point of the Matrix?
To keep humans,
to keep the humans in their prison.
Yeah.
To
give energy, get energy.
To the
robots.
The Matrix is to keep the people alive, to give energy to
the
robots.
So they all have the same purpose or reason for wanting to exist. They're robots or programs that need this energy to function.
The robots, yes.
Well, you're arguing that the programs don't. Where would the programs exist without the machines or robots or whatever?
The programs exist within the Matrix. This is getting out of control, I think.
Ed just doesn't want to believe machines would go to war against each other.
I would love to understand, and I'm down with them all being separate tribes, but I don't see them actually. It does it make for a cool story? Yeah, I just didn't buy their explanation of why they'd be feuding.
That the head honcho babyface could have made the decision, and when their resources and energy starts running low, there's other machines out there. They're like, you made this decision without us. And they
should have. We could speculate, but they don't state this in the movie outright.
But they do. They do.
They're too busy in the coffee shop.
They talk about, like, there was a time where the humans and robots lived in peace and harmony for a couple of years, and then because more people were waking up, their energy, they were not getting as much energy, so the robots restarted the war. They started trying to regain their power because people were waking up. They were living with robots in harmony. The robots were losing energy, and then the robots who were seeing that they were living in harmony with people were fighting the robots that were living in harmony. It was like
they were trying to get
they were trying to get there. Yeah, they were trying to.
That's another possibility. Maybe they're going to explain that in
a possibility. I'm just asking, like, what was there a reason given in the movie, or are we just blatantly speculating what could possibly have happened, doing the writer's job for them?
Maybe then the director's commentary will find out.
There was some
another possibility.
Yeah.
I think there was stuff that was alluded to. It wasn't necessarily spelled out for everything, and that kind of comes to kind of a point I had where, was this movie too symbolic for its own good?
Explain.
So there was a lot of symbolism. I've watched several things about this movie since watching it. Reviews, breakdowns. I've watched all sorts of things. I don't know that it's been skewed, but it's definitely been changed, because I've watched people who loved it and loved all the things that, like, it told, that the commentary it was making about things, and I've watched people that hated it and hated the way that the story was told. But so one of the breakdowns was like, they went scene by scene and they broke down every little thing about, like, oh, in this scene we have Morpheus and Smith are the same person because in Neo's mind, they're kind of connected, and they're both the person who brought him into the Matrix. So that's why he combined these two characters. And when he made the Matrix, and then we see the backdoor area because Neo remembers the backdoor area, and like all these like very symbolic things and like what it meant for
symbolism or just referencing
references
things
and
that happened in the movie.
Well, references, but also like symbolism of like why they use mirrors instead of phones now, and how like it like when you like in the same way that like Black Mirror, the show, got its name from the fact that like your phone is a mirrored surface that's black, and when you look at it, it's a black mirror. Like that's kind of the symbolism. Like they use mirrors in the Matrix now instead of phones. They use
what was the reason in the movie they gave for using the mirrors again?
I don't even know if there was one. I just remember that they started using mirrors.
I think they mentioned something. I think
they mentioned something about how they didn't need the hardwired phone.
Yeah, all I remember was them saying we don't use phones
when they were
anymore.
on the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out why, but
I don't remember them saying why, but they don't use phones. They use mirrors now, and like mirrors are like like they're windows into another dimension or whatever. Or
I give you that with the Windows.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. Like, there was a lot. I just feel like there was a lot of
Jesus symbolism is like very blatant, which it was in the original trilogy. Beyond that, like a lot of references to the original trilogy.
Yeah, but like also Deja Vu the cat, like that's a reference, but also like the symbolism of deja vu, that like feeling of repeating the same thing over and over again. And they did the whole thing where it was like repeating.
Is that what this movie should have been called? Matrix Deja Vu?
Maybe. It could have.
I mean, they really hit you over the head with that cat.
They did.
Yeah.
I thought the cat was going to be the bad guy at the end. Turns out the cat was the one.
A better story.
But what, like, there was all these references to things that, like, also all the meta references to like, oh, Warner Brothers is going to do this. So Warner Brothers wants a fourth one.
Could we address that? I don't know. Will, did you read anything about this? So
I did not read anything about this.
So I'll just do my quick take. I'd say within the first 20 or so minutes, like I was talking to Chris while watching this, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to have to rewatch this. I took my eyes off for maybe a minute to respond to an email. I'm like, oh, I feel like I missed out on a ton. Head over heels in love with this movie for about the first half hour when it had the meta discussion, like, oh, is this the route we're going to take? Throw in some kung fu. Let's call it a day. I'll be happy. I don't know what happened. I avoided all reviews for this movie until I saw it. And now reading after the fact, where I've read different things, even from publications like Deadline Hollywood, where apparently HBO was dead set on making this with or without the Wachowskis. I read another article from them saying that they were waiting for the Wachowskis to agree to do this, but it would eventually be done without them. I've read where Hugo Weaving said he wanted to do this, but he wasn't available. Lawrence Fishburne wanted to do this, was available, never heard back from the Wachowskis.
They killed him off in The Matrix Online. So
sure, like, people care about that.
You can't bring back.
It's canon.
Why would you ever bring back a character?
No, you can bring back the way they brought him back if it was Morpheus. Yeah. The fact that they changed him around.
So my overall opinion of this movie wasn't great for lack of parts I'm sure we'll get to later in the discussion. But I was thinking during this, I'm like, are we just being like massively trolled while watching this? I'm like, because it got so bad at times. I'm like, if I was trying to stick up a middle finger to the president of HBO that kind of forced my hand to make this movie, would I hire two well-known actors and spend hundreds of millions of dollars and, say, F you? Like, this is the movie I would make. And if that's the case...
It's not her money.
Great
do
job.
But I mean, you could also be damaging your career if that's the case as well. In which case, if that was the absolute 100% intent, then this
Isn't she
movie is
like
brilliant.
semi-retired by now?
I don't know. But
Okay.
point is,
Well,
if that
okay,
was
then.
the intent,
If that was
huh?
the intent, I agree with you. It does take it to a brilliant level.
I think it makes it an absolutely brilliant movie, but that's the only excuse that I would have to even put this movie in a positive light.
I went into straight wrestling fan phase when they were talking about the Warner Brothers telling them if they're going to do this or not. I was just
Yep.
like, that's like when someone comes out and talks about Vince McMahon in a way, you're like, wait a second, did he write this? This is kind of like, or is he doing this so that we think it's cool? Like what's happening here? Like,
More like a Vince Russo thing, right?
How would they let it? How would they let it approve if it wasn't their idea? Something like that.
What was your take, Chris, on the meta-ness or lack thereof?
So
of it all?
I like you really enjoyed the meta-ness. I was like, oh, this is kind of like a peek into the writer's room of what happened when this movie was being made, but they're pretending it was a video game.
They said Warner Brothers.
They said
didn't
Warner
have a made-up
Brothers.
company name. They didn't have a
They-
made-up company name. They didn't say the company. They just said Warner Brothers.
Yeah, they said Warner Brothers is going to do this without us. If we don't, like they said, it's the Matrix 4. Like we have to do it. You have to be part of this. Like you can't like not do this. You like. I thought it was a very creative way of being like getting a peek at like how much they didn't actually want to do this, but so they put that in the movie, and I thought that was a great little peek at it. But then it did all go downhill from there once things started to kind of take a turn for the worse. And I think the other thing that was very meta was when they kept showing scenes from the other movies that made you just wish you were watching the other movies. Because you're like, man, this scene with them at the theater with Morpheus in the chair, and they're showing this scene with Morpheus in the chair behind him, and you're like, that was such a cool scene.
Not just
remember
that.
all the
Remember how cool
remember
this
all those
was?
awesome martial arts that we're not going to have in this movie?
Yeah.
Well,
Remember that stuff?
they already pointed out, like when he ran into New Morpheus, he was like, I forgot what the line was, but he said it. But he was like he's like in a cubicle.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's not as dramatic as it was the first time. You remember me saying it with the lightning and the red chair and all this going on.
A lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff, which I did enjoy, but part of what started to turn me, I think, was during that meta meeting. They kind of started. I got the sense they were sort of like needling the fans a bit for the people that didn't understand the brilliance of the Matrix 2 and 3 and them not appreciating the architect scenes and all the philosophy behind it. Uh, it's usually not a great sign when creators tend to take jabs at fans like that, which I can understand the frustration. But yeah, it kind of went downhill after that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to comment on the meta-ness of it all?
No. It was fun, but it did become too much.
Yeah, there were some very interesting meta references like Bugs.
Yeah.
Bunny.
Well, question then.
Because she's the Warner Brothers.
Would this have been a better movie, some other changes aside, but had they had the whole meta intro, doing the shot-for-shot remake of the first Matrix was cool too. But giving us that first half hour, cutting out 90% of the Zion scenes and maybe cranking up the martial arts in this movie. So we get a half hour of the intro and
actually it's called Io, not Zion.
Right.
You didn't want to see the strawberry scene being grown by Aunt Rachel?
I didn't care for that. I didn't see the purpose. I don't know if they were trying to sell like Avatar like mini transformer floaty manta ray bot
I think they're
things.
trying to sell the benefit of their alliance with those robots.
Yeah, I think there's like that. There's something about some of the stuff in the middle.
Jada Pinkett 40 years from now ain't gonna look like that.
No, that's also true.
She's gonna look a lot better.
That's like when they age up Patrick Stewart, and he just looks exactly the same now. When they tried to age him up for Star Trek. Sorry.
Wow.
I called Star Wars Star Trek.
You do not delete that. Leave that in.
You can take my card. You can take my nerd card. I'll leave that in there, so you can take my card. It's fine.
You leave that in.
I'll leave that in. But yeah, like he looks the same. But yeah, there was just so it felt to me like one of the things about the first Matrix movie is that there were a lot of references. Like they reference Zion, they reference like all this other stuff, but you never get to see it in the first one. And it was like, oh, I really hope to see it in the second one. And this one, it's like they tried to cram everything in so that they didn't have to do another movie after this. Like they didn't want this to become like a new Matrix trilogy, which I kind of don't agree with in a way, but I don't know if that makes sense. But
I didn't get the sense they tried to cram things to cram things into this movie to prevent further movies. I mean, that could have been the case. This movie was way too long.
Too long, yep.
I did not. I think of all the not great characterizations, Jada Pinkett Smith's return of Niobe made like the intent I understood to have a character connect to the original well, she was only in 2 and 3, right?
Yeah. It's trilogy. I mean, you've got Neo and
Morpheus would have been great for that role, but whatever, he died off screen. I didn't understand she was part of that rebellion with Morpheus. He witnessed everything firsthand other than Neo sacrificing himself and being able to control the robots. And out of nowhere, but all of a sudden she's...
I don't believe in the one.
So she was always a skeptic.
That's fine, but she admits that the robots disappeared, but then Neo never came back, and how could he be the one if we don't see what happened? And I just don't understand her skepticism, especially if Morpheus was still with her at that time.
Well, maybe when she saw the robots fighting each other for resources, she started to be like, "Oh, this isn't going to last," and went back to her
possible
ways.
But for her to lash out at Bugs, the new heroine captain, who was actually fantastic and one of, if not my favorite part of this movie, and I kind of wish the movie centered around her instead. Oddly enough, if that made Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss, if that made them sort of secondary background characters, at least till the second half of the movie, I think that would have been like a better structure.
I wouldn't mind that, considering she learned to fight from Danny Rand, protector of Kunlun.
She was in Iron Fist,
the immortal Iron Fist.
So I really enjoyed her character. I wish we got more out of her, given all of Niobe's screen time to her, and maybe a little of everyone else's. But yeah, I just didn't dig Niobe in this. The IO, most of that just seemed like it built tension in the real world. Didn't really need to exist.
But you still kind of wanted to see what the real world was like now, I guess, 60 years later.
You know what? And then I would have just been fine with a cameo from Niobe in that case. Like, it didn't need to be like this unnecessary, like, political back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the symbolism right there. Okay, boomer.
Back in my day, we fought wars with the robots. Now the robots are working with us. Go ahead.
It sounds like Will had a much more positive interpretation of this movie. how did you feel about the martial arts or the action scenes in this overall?
Got for a little more. Definitely the motorcycle scene from Matrix 2 was a lot, billion times better than the motorcycle chase here. Um,
I want to go back
but
and
would have liked a little bit more fighting. Maybe just extend any fight scenes, like when they were getting attacked by the gajillion bots. Maybe extend that a little bit more.
Swarm mode.
Or when the Merovingians showed up, maybe he talks a little bit less and there's more fighting.
So the Merovingian scene.
Would have loved the albino ghost.
I want to talk about the Merovingian scene because I want
that falls into this too.
Yeah, so the Merovingian scene is when I want to go back and rewatch because I want to watch that one in slow motion because I feel like there was a lot of scenes there where they had somebody fighting in the foreground, like Neo or Bugs or whoever was fighting in the foreground, and there were people fighting in the background that were just like not even trying. They were just like doing flips and shit behind them because, and like it was just like they're not even like they didn't even choreograph this part really well. They just kind of like phoned it in the back, and they just expected you to be focused on the front. And you know that when you have things on digital distribution now and with home video releases, people are going to sit there and just pause and like slow-mo click frame by frame through each scene to see how far they're like actually not hitting each other. I just really thought that scene was bad. Yeah. The Merovingian also was
bad.
not
okay.
It just was, yeah, it was bad. It was not good. It was.
I agree, that was funny. I can't remember what scene it was, but there was one where I did see like a blatant miss. I was like, wait, what are they doing here?
Yeah, why?
I think that's the scene that made me think, are they legitimately trolling us? Because I think you mentioned while we were watching that, like, about the choreography. I'm like, this is not good. Even the opening scene when they were on the roof, Bugs was running from the agents. I'm like, something just felt off about the choreography, and I had to look it up. Chad Stahelski, I believe, who was Keanu Reeves' stunt double in the original Matrix, who is a pretty prolific stunt coordinator who's now pretty famous director of the John Wick movies, brought on that great fight choreography that we see in those movies. He played Trinity's husband in the Matrix in this movie.
Okay.
So he coordinated all these fight scenes.
Listen, it all comes down to the director and
well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, this is Lana Wachowski or
Lana, yeah.
I think it's Lana. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if they used a second unit director for this. But even then, like, the action wasn't caught well for any of the scenes, really. The choreography wasn't shot particularly well. And something that really bothered me throughout this whole movie is, all right, you could say, like, why does Kung Fu even matter? It's such an important part of Neo's character, of Morpheus's character, of how they fight, or pretty much anyone's character in the Matrix, of how, even the Agent Smith.
Yep.
How that's severely lacking in this movie. And when we see the Merovingian, who is one of my favorite side characters in those sequels, to see him look like a background character in Steven Spielberg's Hooked, I'm like, why? Like, were they trying to make him look like the train conductor from the Matrix? Like, yeah. Like, is it every time you're just program ushered aside, you just look like a street hobo? Like, I'm not sure. And then why does he have goons if that's the case? If he has no purpose in the Matrix anymore?
He was just there to monologue.
I think. Well, that whole thing was he was at that point in exile, like all those other ones that he like, because the Merovingian.
He didn't fight. He
didn't fight, but he was still in exile. So like, he kind of became the thing that he was a collector of.
They should have brought back Monica Bellucci.
Like, that would have been nice. I would have been so much happier had they done that. Why was he in exile if he was trying to stop Neo?
No, that was when was that when was it NP who brought them in? Who started that fight? Was it Smith or no? I think it was the wasn't it?
Was it Smith?
Wasn't Neil Patrick
Smith
Harris?
was waiting there in that scene when he walked in.
Right, but
I
didn't
think
Neil
that's
Patrick
when
Harris?
Before.
I thought Neil Patrick Harris's character was like, and the exiles, and he like unleashed
Appeared.
them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So that Smith.
I'll have to rewatch
Yeah,
it.
you have to. I believe it was Neil Patrick Harris's character that released them, the exiles, and because Neil Patrick Harris's character was the top guy at that in this version of the Matrix,
The new architect.
The what's his name? The analyst.
Analyst, I think.
Yeah, it's the analyst. Yeah, I believe it's the analyst.
Neil Patrick Harris's character.
Yeah, I believe it's called, he's the analyst.
It's not the designer.
No, it's the analyst because his
The
whole
analyst,
thing is
yep.
yeah, his whole thing is that he analyzes human condition. So the architect
Makes them into better batteries.
Yeah, he was analyzing humanity to get more out of them, whereas the architect was trying to build the Matrix to get the most out of the people.
I didn't get it. I didn't get why Smith was even in this movie.
Smith was.
I didn't get why the character of Morpheus was in this movie. Played by. Hold on.
I can understand why the character of Morpheus was in this movie if you go with Neil's subconscious.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
Yeah.
But why?
But that actor could have played any character in this game. I mean, in this movie.
Smith was terrible. Like the computer should not have brought the Smith back.
Yeah, every time.
Neil didn't bring Smith back. The analyst brought Smith back.
The analyst kept Smith around.
Yeah.
And I think,
but Neo created him to be in the
No.
Didn't he create him to be in the game?
No.
Or Morpheus?
No. Morpheus. He created Morpheus, not Smith.
He created Morpheus to be in that module thing that he created. That wasn't part of the game.
Smith is around. So I think the thing is that for me, I believe the reason for Smith being around is the same reason why Trinity and Neo are around. The three of them kind of create this like symbolic.
But he never mentioned it. That would be.
They didn't mention it, but I think it's something that they were trying to imply. Again, there's a lot of implication. It's because of the implication.
Listen, he did talk about the architect before, how everything was numbered. So maybe analyzing that could be a reason if you need that nega.
He needs that antagonistic relationship with.
I just want to point out real quick, I love subtlety in writing, but when you leave so many gaps that you're implying all these things in your script, that's just lazy writing. My opinion. Please continue.
I think that goes to like the people wanting to like read into more stuff and that goes to the symbolism. Like they're trying to give you this symbolism of like that they want you to go back and rewatch it and try and pick out the little things like, oh, when he says this and when they mean this.
That's filling in the gaps so the writers can watch all those YouTube videos later and they'll be like, oh, we did mean to do that. Let's throw that in the script. And that's good too. I don't believe for a second that Hollywood writers actually believe that they're being so deep with all this symbolism all the time. Like you can listen to Spielberg, you could listen to any acclaimed director doing their commentary and like, yeah, it just worked out that way, but it could be interpreted that way. They direct and write whatever they want and they leave it to the audience to interpret that for them. But that's what a great director does. And good writing.
You can see in this scene that they
send you if it's subtle, they send you in a direction. They just leave it to go everywhere.
But it's very clear that the analyst, his glasses, he has blue frames on his. This is one of the things that I watched. He has blue frames for his glasses, which symbolizes the blue pills that he keeps giving Neo, which keeps him in the Matrix. I was like, "Are you kidding me? You're talking about the blue frames as being symbolic of the blue pills that keep him in the Matrix?" And
pretty blatant reference. to the pills. I mean,
I
that
mean,
wasn't
it
subtle
is,
at all.
but
Yeah.
like, the frames on his glasses is supposed like the office is always blue and like Ed's background is purple, whatever. It's red and blue, so it's sort of like both.
I remember it's purplish blue.
Purplish blue, so it's kind of red and blue pills. But yeah, like that
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
stuff.
not
Like
buying it in the script.
I don't know that again. I don't know that they didn't make his eyeglass frames blue to symbolize the blue pills that he's feeding Neo, but
They did.
maybe
That's pretty obvious. No, they definitely
They-
did. That was
do you think
very
that was
obvious.
blatant? I don't know. And they were
Very
shaped.
much so. Yes.
I didn't pick up on it. I just like, oh, his glasses. I
You
didn't
come up with
think
all
that it
these
was a
garbage excuses for the writers for all this other nonsense, but the clearly blue frames that they used to try to want to keep him in the Matrix. The same analysts that kept giving him the same medication to, keep him in check.
All right. So moving on. So one of the other, I wanted to do a kind of a comparison. Would you say that this movie succeeded or failed as a Matrix movie? Like, how did you feel?
Failed as a Matrix movie.
Okay.
Failed as an action movie. If they were trying to do the most epic troll job ever, complete and utter success.
Okay.
I think history will determine that.
Well, do you think this movie succeeded or failed at being a Matrix movie?
A Matrix movie, it failed.
Okay. So
as an action movie, I would give it a D.
There were.
I was like, it could have done more.
So two other movies I thought that this would be a good comparison against were Ghostbusters Afterlife and Star Wars Episode 7. Because both of those movies succeeded greatly at being the next, Star Wars, I think.
Being the franchise?
In being part of that franchise. So
okay, being part of the franchise, gotcha.
Yeah, so what do you think were some of the things about this Matrix movie where it failed in, say, comparison to, say, what made Ghostbusters or Star Wars succeed? Because one of the things was that there were a lot of very, nostalgic member berries scenes in both Star Wars and Ghostbusters, but there were also a lot of those in this, but they just seem to have not hit the same way. They didn't have the same impact. They didn't, at least for me, it didn't feel the same.
Good writing. Writers that didn't hate their audience and tried to treat them like they were a-holes for not appreciating the previous movies. And good writing. Competent storytelling. That's it.
Storytelling.
Was it direction at all?
They didn't force the bring back of characters. Like, they didn't bring anyone back played by someone different, like the Morpheus and the Smith.
True. I mean, but the movie does hinge really on Neo, and in my opinion, to a lesser extent, the previous to this movie, Trinity. I didn't know that it's necessary to bring anyone else back. I don't think the movie failed because of that. I just think, and we have different opinions. I think Ghostbusters Afterlife has very mixed opinions online. I've not met anyone or read any opinion where they thought it was just okay. People either love it or downright hate it.
I think I think this movie also has a lot of, you either love it or you hate it.
I have read mostly negative opinions. I've yet to see anyone really defend this.
It's just there.
Force Awakens, I think, more so has generally favorable reviews, and again, you could see where the passion lies. Like, J.J. Abrams was a huge fan of Star Wars. We're not going to mention what he did with Episode 9.
No, I was only talking about 7. That's why I kept it to 7.
Though I would compare this movie to Episode 9 in terms of disappointment. Though this was, I can't even start thinking about which one I hated more. I don't know. I don't know that just beyond solid writing by people who cared and
so
again just wanted to tell a fun story instead of insulting people and trolling everyone, I guess. I don't know.
Also, Afterlife was a passion project, if I remember Jason Reitman speaking about it at the panel. You know, it wasn't a forced piece.
Right. So my thought though is about the difference between this movie and Ghostbusters and Star Wars Episode 7. Those movies also focused on new characters. And I think that one of the problems with this was that it didn't allow the franchise to move forward in the same way that those movies did, with new characters taking the mantle. It would have been one thing, I think, if the movie was kind of a passing of the torch film from like Neo to like the one, where like he was the one who kind of but it not really.
Trinity's the one. She's flying.
No, because they're not.
She's blowing the sides of the buildings.
But she's not.
She's chopping the neck and snapping them back.
But she's not the one.
Her like squared right there.
Her and Neo are the ones. They both have superpowers.
Neo never chopped the architect's head off, punched him, broke his jaw, and then snapped it right back into place.
What's the only dope part about this movie? I'm like, why couldn't we get more of that?
Yeah,
Give us that for 20 minutes. I'm like,
damn, man, what are they into in the real world?
Like when they jumped off the skyscraper and they're just dangling, it's like, damn, I know they erased them, but I'm like, you could see where the wires are on their hips. I'm like,
yeah. Again, I thought I saw wires in the one scene. I was like, what the hell?
Like it just looked.
And they're just dangling. They're not flying.
They weren't
not
flying. They weren't moving.
She was just horrible.
Just flopping there, like stationary. He's hanging on.
She took off, pulling him. That kind of reminded me of like Richard Donner Superman when he took off with the wires.
Bad. And I don't want to get too sidetracked because you bring up a good point about younger cast. I will just mention, I think this movie owes a huge debt or back payment to Chris Evans' push, which I mentioned a lot while we watched this. How Neo is essentially just pushing everything, just pushing bullets, which is what Chris Evans does the whole movie. His complete lack of powers, even though he isn't the one anymore, or he's temporarily sort of the one till it's transferred to Trinity.
He's still the
one. He's still the one because at the end he flew out with her. She didn't have to piggyback him.
At the very end, but not when she flew.
Yeah,
not when they first flew again. But at the very end,
whatever.
But yeah, I think I would have liked.
That's right. Hey, listen, he can reach through or pull out a bullet and massage the heart back. Maybe he printed a little code on her like he did with Smith.
Like Venom.
Print a little code.
A little DNA?
Hey, he printed it on Smith, so that already has precedent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
You're a precedent. You are.
I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But yes, this does.
So you were talking about the younger cast.
Yeah, the younger cast. I feel like it was a disservice to them to not have passed the torch and given the younger cast or a new cast or new people.
They didn't even have to be the new ones. They could have been like a new Morpheus and like the new.
Yeah.
A leadership role.
I thought.
Yeah, you're right. They could have gotten a little bit more out of it.
Yeah, they could have gotten more out of those characters, or because what are they doing now? Like, it just perpetuated the idea that Neo and Trinity are this force to be reckoned with. The Matrix, because there was all of this build up in the third one about the second one about there having been like 6 other the ones, and like I would have loved to have been like, okay, this now Neo, and we've alluded to the fact that Seraph is a former the one who was protecting the Oracle, so like it would have been cool to see like Neo in that kind of a position where he's
maybe just as a program in the Matrix,
or as a the one that has to like do something. I just felt like there was a missed opportunity. Like, but again,
there was a better story there.
But then also, there's also this very like meta discussion of they couldn't have really, if they really wanted to do this middle finger movie to Warner Brothers, where they're like, sure, we'll do your dumb movie, but we're going to make it about how we hated making this whole movie, then they couldn't have told that better story because they had to tell this one.
True.
So,
part of me is like, did they do this? Like, they got Keanu Reeves on board, Carrie-Anne Moss, and they're like, listen, we're just going to take a dump on this HBO executive, spend all of his money, and make sure he never asks us back. And they're all in line with that, and they're all okay with that, and the fight coordinator and all these people.
I mean, they're all still getting paid.
Right, but like Keanu Reeves is still trying to make movies.
He's gonna make John Wick, and everyone's gonna go flock to that. Right,
yeah, but this is a guy I don't see stepping away anytime soon. Let's not forget, after the original Matrix trilogy, his career kind of spiraled fast. During the pandemic, I rewatched 47 Ronin, and when that movie came out, he wasn't even like advertised as a star in the movie. Like, unless you watched a trailer, you didn't even know he was in that movie. Well, that's like how far his star fell.
I think he's in a different position right now. I mean,
how could you have been bigger after the original Matrix?
Yeah, but I think
he's only in a position now because John Wick happened to be a hit.
Yeah. Now, I don't think, with this being Matrix 4, I don't think this would hurt him if it took a dump, because people could be like, they shouldn't have made this movie.
Right. I know John Wick
I don't think it'll hurt him as much as
still coming out. I'm saying, what happens after John Wick's done? Where does his career go?
Still in Ted 4.
You guys saw the third one?
Not yet.
No, you're still waiting on that one.
Still waiting on that one. Still got that.
Point being, like, he has to worry about his career.
I don't think he does.
Okay, we'll just ignore precedents. But yeah, like, I totally agree the point you guys made that, there could have. It seemed, now that you mention it, like, did they try to jam everything? Not so much, but more so definitely make sure there's nowhere to go with this story. Because if they did care, like, yeah, I felt like Bugs or any other character would have been a great focus for this movie and sort of have them carry this franchise. But I don't think that was Lana. Again, are we sure it's Lana, not Lily? Either of the Wachowskis' intent to really care about this franchise going forward.
Maybe they're too feeling artsy, and she's trying to do it subtly, and it just came out blatant.
Yeah, I think that's really what happened, and they could try play it off as a joke 20 years from now, and like, oh yeah, we totally intended to make this piece of garbage, and
totally
that's
trolled
because everyone thinks it happened, and they'll just go with that theory from now on.
Anything else you guys want to talk about? I went through all my notes. I don't know what you guys had on your notes because you didn't give me your notes.
My notes.
I wrote my notes.
Yeah.
I got a page and a half of notes.
Yeah.
What
else you got?
It's nuts. I got my nuts right here.
Greatest troll job in history. Yet to be determined.
That's definitely a good call there with the greatest troll job in history.
Very little kung fu. Oh, why did Sati age?
The program's aged.
Program's aged like the Merovingian, got black teeth and long hair and dreadlocks.
He just got dirty.
But no, the programs did age. I mean, friggin' the Oracle aged. She freaking changed her whole appearance.
It's different.
Oracle...
All right.
Oh, you're talking about the other matrices? She changed her appearance to escape.
Yeah.
They had
a way for her to keep hiding was to change her appearance like the Oracle.
Programs did create child programs, so I guess it was assumed that programs would grow up. They would
and then stop.
Gain knowledge and experience and grow in some way. They probably programmed aging into the programs.
Possible.
The only other thing
she's a rebel program
I wanted to mention, because I had such an issue with this when I watched it, the bullet time slowdown effects in this movie. Hated it. What was it?
A little choppy.
super choppy. I was telling Chris, it looked like late
hamster guy.
late 80s, early 90s action scene where like they had to blur everything so the camera didn't catch all the bad action. Like, what is this? You guys revolutionized bullet time to capture different angles at super slow speeds and be that was pretty revolutionary. And now you call this
another.
how's that not a massive troll job? Like bullet time?
Yeah. They call it bullet time too, and that was like a thing that like it. Why do they even call it bullet time? It's not called bullet time. It's just him moving faster than bullets. It's just he's really
at the time that the bullets need to move. Bullets. Okay, what's a light year?
That's a
bullet time. It's a bullet time.
Like I like Neil Patrick Harris so much, and I feel like they gave him nothing to work with in this movie. Whereas in the previous movies, characters like the Merovingian or even the Architect, like I don't even know who that actor was, and he had such gravitas, and the speech they gave him held so much weight. And here, Neil Patrick Harris is just memeing and trolling, and I'm like, he's so good. Why is he working with this nonsense? But yeah, bullet time camera really bothered me.
Bothered you?
Bullet time.
Very much.
Not great.
Not great, huh?
Yeah, bad. I'll say it's bad.
Do you prefer bullet time or shaky cam?
Maybe shaky cam. Yeah. I like the shaky cam from like the Bourne movies. Those were fun.
Were they?
Yeah, I love the Bourne movies.
When was the last time you watched the Bourne movies?
Oh, I don't know. Years ago.
Yeah, try watching them now.
Really?
Yeah.
Get a headache?
Is it get a little nauseous?
Get a little
nauseated? It might be because we're older.
That too. I haven't watched Cloverfield in a while, but I'm not gonna try.
Just don't sit right next to the screen when you watch Cloverfield.
That was a mistake. All right. So one positive thing that you guys can say about this movie that's not a troll job on your behalf. Chris.
Bugs. Oh.
Sorry.
All right. Will said bugs.
It's bugs.
Chris.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat the question again.
What's one positive thing that you could say about this movie?
Oh man, that is this. Okay.
Can't find one thing. Not even the Morpheus statue.
No. Okay. So the one positive thing that I can come away with from this movie is that I did enjoy. I know that you didn't like the IO stuff, but I did enjoy seeing some of the aftermath of what happened in the real world after Neo. After the end of the third one, after the end of Revolutions, because it is like I think there's a lot of fun lore and there's a lot of really good world building in the Matrix, but for some reason they just miss it a lot. Like they just don't tell it. I feel like there probably is a really interesting movie in the other parts of the story. For some reason, like I just don't know that they picked the right part of the story to tell.
So do you get the sense they didn't really care about this movie?
I just don't think they cared. But I did enjoy seeing the robots and the people getting together. Oh, speaking of, I'll got another thing to complain about, but
make it quick.
Yeah. What's up with outside of the Matrix Morpheus and the like swarm of pellets that he is? Like,
yep. And he can go up tubes and stuff.
That he can go up. That he's just a swarm of pellets, but that I thought that the only reason he was able to do that was because he was when he was in the hovercraft. Like the hovercraft had like a special projector that projected the thing but all of a sudden he can actually just walk around wherever he wants. Why wouldn't all of the programs who are sentient want to do that? Why did the one program want to stay in that weird, like, moth body thing, and why wouldn't they all want to be pellet people?
Maybe they're not all sentient.
That's what they were. They were all sentient. That's the point. They were like freeing the sentient.
They were part of the Matrix. Maybe they had no actual free will.
Maybe they like being moths.
They did have. They had.
Well, that program Matrix Morpheus. They did actually have to give a red pill to trace him and pull him out of wherever they keep programs.
Yeah, I just didn't. I just didn't think Swarm Morpheus outside of the Matrix made a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
I thought he played a solid. Well, I don't want to spoil it for another show, but never mind.
A solid what?
Well, the guy that played Morpheus, he was in a different thing where he played another very heavily spoiled proof character. So spoiler protected character. Yeah.
For what? For
that show on HBO.
Black Mantis and Aquaman. Jesus, Chris, you made me say it. Got your back, Ed.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so that was the Matrix.
Any other?
Didn't care for it.
Ed didn't care for it. Ed didn't care for it. Will, what's your thoughts? Final thoughts. We're gonna go.
I told you, man, right on the road. I didn't hate it. I love it. Could have done without it. It was a thing that was done.
Did you guys think it needed to exist? Most times I don't mind that they make an unnecessary sequel as long as I'm entertained. This movie as it is doesn't need to exist.
No. Well,
if they make a sequel to this, it really hits the nail on the head. Does that change the opinion to this one?
No. I'll go on to like that movie. I still won't care about this one at all.
If they build off it, they'll give you like, okay, its purpose was to create this other one.
So I'm the kind of guy I don't care. Like when they did Zoolander 2 or Anchorman 2, like decades later or whatever, I'm like, the common consensus, like, why would they do that? Why would they tarnish the legacy of this precious jewel? I'm like, I don't care. That movie's going to exist regardless. I'm always going to either love or hate those movies. Making the quote unquote unnecessary sequel never changes my opinion on the original. I figure why not? The worst thing that could happen is just it's a bad movie and it doesn't change my opinion at all. If they do continue to make a sequel to this,
if you're the analyst, you would wipe this from the memories.
I wish I could wipe it from my own memory. It's terrible, but I wouldn't. I will still watch if they make another one. I just hope it's good, that they actually put effort in. Stop trying to treat the audience like a bunch of jerks.
They are ants.
All right.
There's that. Summed
it up. It's not very good.
Are we at the comments yet?
We can leave a comment. We're gonna sign off here. Thank you so much for watching and listening.
They can leave a comment whenever they want in the middle of the video. Don't have to wait to the end.
You don't have to leave. You could leave a comment whenever, but this is when we're gonna call it to action. Tell you to leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications about all the new videos and talks and chats we're gonna come out with. We're hopefully going to be doing more of these coming out every time we watch something, because that's what we just watched. The Matrix Resurrection. Anything? Nothing?
Oh, you're waiting for us to say something?